Floating the head back. Feel the crown start to lift. Bending a little forward from the hips as we soften the knees. The shoulder blades sink. The back of the hips sink. The tailbone drop under the body. Lower back lengthening. Open the hands and feet. And as the back rounds, spreads, as the upper back even lifts very slightly, we feel the upper back enclosing the chest, creating a soft space inside, freeing the breath. As the lower back lengthens, as the hips loosen, the tailbone drops under the body. Start to feel the breath collecting in the abdomen. Think of the hands and feet also as slightly cups, spreading first and then cupping around the center of the palm, the center of the sole, very slightly. Feel how that helps take a little tension out of the shoulders and neck. It feels like the feet are lightly grabbing the floor. If we want to continue to fine-tune this posture, we want to make sure we relax our face and jaw. Let the tip of the tongue rest naturally at the roof of the mouth, just back a little bit from the upper teeth. You might be able to feel how that opens a little space, relaxing the deep throat. And as the tailbone sinks under the body, we think of the tip of the tailbone as very slightly lifted, gently activating the pelvic floor, perhaps even feeling some activation of the inner thighs, support coming from there, helping us to relax the thicker muscle on the front, the outside. We'll let all the weight flow freely down through the body, right through the feet and the floor. And feel how the support rises up from the floor, up through the whole body, right up through the crown of the head. It connects to that subtle lift, tip of the tailbone, tip of the tongue. The support seems to flow up through the center of the body, right up at the front of the spine, deep in the body, right up to the crown of the head. And the eyes are soft, not staring. This is a little tricky when we have an online class. Tendency is to watch the screen very closely, but that's actually one of the things that makes being online less than ideal. Really, I want to soften my vision, take in the whole room, imagine perhaps even that I can see out to the horizon. Hopefully it's a little easier here where I'm not really moving, there's not much to see. Then we'll rock the weight gently forward and back on the feet, maintaining this posture. The feeling of sinking the weight, quality of the breath. We rock forward and feel the feet spreading out as we sit back, feet grabbing the floor. You might even feel something similar echoed in the hands. As the feet spread, the hands spread a little bit. Just release the shoulder. Sit back, feel the feet grabbing, I feel the hand just a little more cupped, almost like I'm picking up a bag by the handle, or just starting to really. But that's not intentional. It's not where my mind is working to produce some action. I want it to feel like it's just spontaneous. We're starting to connect the shoulders and hips here, right? Letting the shoulder blades sink down, letting the hips sink down. And I want that connection to reach out to the hands and feet. Let's shift the weight a little bit side to side, and about 70% of the weight. And giving real attention to the lighter side and making sure we still release our weight down so that 30% feels rooted, connected to the ground. And even here, I may feel a little play in the hands. Just some subtle change, even if I'm not really clear on what it is I feel, just noticing what I feel, something. The breath is always slow, relaxed, and deep, very comfortable. Feeling that the breath is significantly slower than whatever movement I'm doing. And I'm circling the weight. Movement comes from the ankles, but I also feel it up in the hips and maybe even up into the deeper abdomen a little bit. I'm not trying to move the hips or anything higher up, but I can feel again sort of an echo of the movement that's down in the feet and the ankles. Every part of the feet stays rooted to the ground. So the weight comes off one foot, 30% left in the heels, toes, paws. These simple exercises are very useful because it's much harder once we start doing a lot of choreography to pay attention to these little connections, the basic posture, these simple relationships. But that's actually where the key to the movement. What is it that makes anything we're doing Tai Chi not just sort of choreographed dance-like movements? It's these subtle actions, these things we notice that we keep listening for. So as I circle, I start to feel a kind of circling movement in the deep abdomen. First, it might be very subtle, which is fine. Pause. Let's look up. Open the front of the body. Down. Keeping that sense of length in the neck. So not letting the head drop back. The crown of the head always lifting up and away from the body. A little bit to the rear, a little bit to the front. And again, I feel the hands and the feet spreading a little bit, and then slightly cupped, rounded. The weight still is pretty even on the feet. Tailbone stays slightly tucked under. Lower body's nice and stable, and it's feeling releasing the weight down that stabilizes the low body. Side to side. Lengthening one side, but not feeling like we're collapsing the other. Some sense of length and space, even on the shorter side. And that comes again from the feeling of the crown being light, rising away from the body as the weight sinks down, anchors the lower body. And circle. Even on simple movements, it's hard to maintain our awareness of posture throughout the body. Start to monitor these kinds of relationships between the extremities and the trunk. I always start every class with these kinds of foundation exercises, and even if I'm just practicing myself, I always do a fair amount of them. That way, when I start doing the Tai Chi movements, pretty quickly I feel like everything is working the way it should be. I'm able to really feel, notice what's happening. There's already a fair amount of freedom and ease in the joints, sense of circulation. Let's turn the head. Starting with the head and then working step by step further down through the neck. In that same posture, the chin a little back, crown up, and shoulders sink, hips sink. Working from the neck into the upper chest and back, continuing down. The arms do not have to move. Sometimes it's helpful, especially when I'm trying to free up this area right across the uppermost part of the chest and back. What I'm doing here is letting the thumbs turn to the opposite side. So especially on this arm, I'm turning away from, feel extra stretch, free up this area. Just around the collarbone, front shoulder. Down through the chest, into the lower ribs, waist, the upper hip bones, down into the hip joints, all the way down into the ankles and feet. Again, feeling like I'm releasing the weight down. On that leg I'm turning away from to help anchor it. Go out, flex ankle, heel up, toe up. And let the wrists warm up a little bit as well, but I'm not really moving from the elbow. Right, so really trying to keep the movement here at the extremities. Toeing in and toeing out. Again, just from the ankle. No real movement of the knee and hip. Toe in and toe out, palm up, palm down. Even here, minimum movement of the knee and hip. Really try to get the articulation of the ankle. And then with the heel raised, circle the knee. Now would be a lot more movement in the hip, but still giving my attention primarily to the ankle, freeing up that range of motion, circling one way and then the other. The opposite leg, where most of my weight is, still want to drop the tailbone under, make sure I have a nice clean line, knee over toes, hip over heel. These kinds of points of alignment, and once we start the choreography, are a lot more challenging to maintain our attention on. Start to build the right habits here, get the right feeling, get easier to maintain that sort of thing as we move along. Toe in and toe out. Soul in and soul out. Really feeling the ankle become more relaxed. Maybe feeling a little warmth there, the circulation starting to move. And noticing perhaps the sensation reaching up through the leg bit by bit. Circle. Even on mornings when I don't have time to do Tai Chi forms, just doing these foundation exercises does an awful lot. And the more seriously we take them, the more we really give them very close attention, the more we're likely to get out of them. Now I'm going to tuck under a little more strongly, feel how that pushes my low back into my hands, and untuck, stick the back side out, feel how that feet curve, returns to the low back. Nice full range of motion. Right. Strong but not forced. And keep everything relatively relaxed. And how that movement sort of pushes up through the crown of my head as well as working down through the feet. Feel a little bit of that pressing, grasping again. And then dropping one hip down towards the ankle, let the other one rise up. Stretching out the space between the ribs and upper hip bone on one side, opening up the waist on that side, getting a little shorter, consolidated on the other. Let one knee bend and then the other to help get the hips moving. And then circle. Verse. A nice smooth circle. Take a little wider step. Shift the weight side to side. I'm bending my knees a little bit more, sitting down a little more into the hips. Tailbone still dropped under. Find that what we call for Tai Chi neutral tilt, which is a tailbone under kind of feeling. A long, hopefully relatively loose lower back. And then how that facilitates the maintaining of an arch formed by the two legs, rather than letting one knee fall in. Keep the little toe planted as the weight comes off one foot. Maintain an even height, maintain that rounded arch of the legs. And turning side to side. I'm spending a little more time this morning on these foundation exercises. I said I do them quite regularly, even when I don't have much time. And they never get boring to me. And I think that's a big part of the trick. Find what the real feeling, right, that we're looking for in these exercises. They stay quite interesting. Right? Even the simplest things have some real challenge to them when we're searching for these internal connections. The more specific I can make the sense of the exercise, the more engaging it continues to be, and the better effect I'm likely to feel. Right, so I was doing some turning from the hips. Right, we can turn and shift the weight in the same direction, or reverse. Right, shift to one side, but turn to the other. And again, the knee stays right over the toe, sinking the hip. And I'm not leading from my head, right? The tendency is to turn the head a lot, right? Or, right, related sort of moving from the shoulders, which gives me a lot of waist movement. But here, my shoulders, my head, they're just along for the ride, which is going to be very much the way they feel in the walking much of the time. Not 100%, but here, really trying to let whole upper body take the back seat, just along for the ride, doing all the turning from below my hip bones, right in the hip joint, top of the thigh. And if I toe out to one side, I can practice the bow stance. So shifting forward, back leg sinks down, right? The weight's least, keeping the back heel, little toe down. When I come back, keeping the front leg stable and weighted, making sure that front knee stays a little bit bent and doesn't slacken out. Then I can add a turn to the front. Relax back. That gives me a little more stretch of the hip, makes it a little harder to drop the tailbone under, but that's very much the kind of thing I'm giving attention to. Change sides. Turn to the front. And then toe in and toe out. The sense of both hips now open together. Both hips like hinges fold in and both out. And again, I want to avoid any sway in that back leg. So the back leg is like a post. Whole posture leads the weight down. Hip stays right over my heel. Doesn't swing out. That keeps my knee right over my toes. It doesn't roll in. Legs a little bit. One leg by sinking the weight down to the other, looking for a feeling counterbalance or counterweight. Using the posture to send the weight, raise the opposite leg. We worked a little on the formal commencement last week, starting with the heels together. Sink down with the weight primarily on one leg. Again, trying to avoid any leaning, swaying to the side. Bend in the knees a little bit. Then how that helps drop the tailbone under, step out. Let the body turn a little bit as I take that step. Think of the step as arcing behind me a little bit. Shift the weight to the center and this foot toes in. Continue to shift the weight past the center. My body turns just a little bit to the other side. Again, come back to the center, toeing in. Here the palms face back. Think of the weight as sinking down, shoulders sinking, hips sinking. Again, a sense of a counterweight that lifts the arms. Rise back up. As I mentioned, the neutral position for the eyes is as if I'm looking out to the horizon. But I can use subtle movements of the eyes to help coordinate, guide the whole body. I'm going to start by looking slightly down, feeling how that rounds the back. Maybe deepen that sitting crease of the hip a little bit. Feel like it loads the legs, a little spring-like. Which gives me the opportunity to then release that force. And load the spring, that potential. Release it into movement. As the hands come up, though, the shoulders and hips are sinking. Then the elbows and knees begin to bend. That's the third coordination. Shoulders to hips, elbows to knees. And as the hands come down, they feel heavy, as if they're resting on the floor, connecting with the feet. Release back up, drop the fingers. Look down, load the body. The person looking from the outside, they think, oh, this is a hand movement. Somebody's moving their arms, waving their arms around. But really, it's a whole body movement. And starting with the eyes, and sitting down a little bit in hips and knees, rounding the back. Preparation helps make that clear. Each phase of the movement, my weight is being released into the floor. Even when the arms are coming up and I'm lifting my eyes up to the horizon. So sinking weight, shoulders and hips sinking. Now my focus comes in a little bit closer to me. That coordinates with the elbows and knees. Looking slightly down again. Feeling the hands heavy. And then look back, neutral, horizon height. A little down, up to the horizon, a little closer, a little down. Certainly not down at the floor. These are fairly subtle movements of the eyes. Why are the eyes important? Well, my eyes help coordinate my intention, what it is I think I'm trying to do, as well as create subtle movements of the head, which really affect the spine quite a bit and help build that whole body feeling. When people are learning Tai Chi, they usually learn the form initially rather robotically, right? Hands here, foot here, shift your weight. Which is kind of an obvious way to go, but down the road, people get trapped sometimes. They're sort of locked in this external choreography. We start thinking about the eyes early on and their relationship to these subtle movements of the spine and how the movements flow out into the limbs from the spine. It's quite helpful. It's a slow process, not just slow movement, but slow over the course of time. So this is all really to set our posture and these internal connections before we start walking, and then hopefully we can maintain them. Right now, I'm going to leave my hands floating out here in front of the body. Shift the weight and turn out, toe out with that foot. Shift forward, still just releasing the weight down through the arms a little bit. Step up. Step out to the front. And here, looking a little bit to the front before I step is helpful. Helps get me the correct width side to side. So that the head, the shoulders, the hips are not a fused block. We don't want to feel like there's a lot of neck movement or twist from the shoulders and waist. Most of the movement is still carried along on the hips, but there is some subtle movement in the head and neck, keeps the spine feeling lively. Sit back, toe out, so I can think looking to the side just a little bit. Opening up the hips. Step up. And then again, before I step, I'm looking a little bit to the front. That's where I'm going to be most aware of perhaps what the head is doing at this stage. Right. Here, the head and the rest of the body seem to be moving almost perfectly in step. Right. I may find that my nose is just a little bit ahead of the angle of my hips, but it really shouldn't be much. But after I step up and I'm in the middle of the next step, I am turning to look a little bit first before I step out. There, side. Step out, toe in. This commencement movement, the footwork, helps build, again, those connections that are going to be used throughout the walking. Hips swing open. Hips really have to open up, keep the tailbone dropping under. Look to the front. So here's where, again, being online can really mess you up because whatever you're doing, you're trying to watch the screen. Be brave, do it incorrectly. Keep your head, right, your sense of your eyes, your nose, guiding the movement, not looking back over your shoulder, at what I'm doing. Even in the classroom, this is a big problem. It's not like this is a problem unique to use in the video screen. The video screen makes it really obvious, right? But this is something everybody does, and especially in the beginning, even intermediate students. Let's turn back, toeing in, step in. Everybody's like turning to watch the instructor. Now you're not doing Tai Chi anymore. Nothing about what, as soon as you're looking back, nothing you're doing can be considered Tai Chi. All the internal connections of the body fall apart. You really have to be brave enough to do it incorrectly. And pay more attention to how it feels than how it looks. Learn to sense when it's better and when it needs some significant improvements. Right? You can always use some improvement. Here again, on a toe in, step in, and continue the walking. But I do an awful lot of talking when I teach these days, because I want people to connect the words to the internal sensations. Often when Chinese talk about trying to feel what's happening in the body, they call it listening, right? Listening interiorly, and listening to the inside. And your eyes are kind of the enemy of this, right? We tend to be very visual. And people, especially when they're beginning, tend to be more concerned with what they look like than how they feel. Right? They don't want to be that person who's doing something that looks wrong. They're much more concerned with doing something that feels wrong. Again, here, I look a little forward. Gets me ready for that step. Now, as I sit back and turn out, the coordination, right, the upper and lower body is very, very close. Now I look a little bit forward in preparation for that step. So I had one teacher who referred to these sort of two stages or two phases of the looking as guiding and guarding, right? So the looking is not looking at the instructor or looking at the screen. The looking is something that helps control the fine movement and the balance of the body. So as soon as I'm looking somewhere else, it all falls to pieces. So here, this is the guiding, right? The eyes are helping create that turn. The connection is almost immediate. It's very close. There seems to be very little discrepancy between the angle of the head and the angle of the hips. But here is the guarding, sort of look before you leap. Look a little bit forward and feel a subtle twist down through the body. The hips aren't really turning significantly yet. Right? They can turn a little bit as long as this leg is stable. But now there's a little more obvious difference between the angle where my belt buckle is pointed and where my nose is pointed. Right? Even there's a difference between my nose and my eyes. By the time I finish this step and move forward, ideally the hips, the shoulders, the head, the eyes square. Coming back, the amount of twist in the spine is very subtle. Look forward, right? Look before you leap. Becomes a little more obvious. It's not extreme by any means, but it's something that becomes visible on the outside. This is the kind of thing many people would consider a subtlety, but it can have big effects. So I'm not sure it's accurate to call it subtle, per se. Right? I think it's challenging to find that kind of coordination, make sense of the connections. Once you start to, it does not feel subtle anymore. It feels like a big deal. Often the things we would call subtle are really just the things we're having trouble feeling. It's not exactly the same as being subtle. Maybe it is, I don't know. But the things that are subtle today, we don't want to feel like they're subtle tomorrow. We gradually feel like they're more obvious and more indispensable. Let's turn back. And I'm just going to bring my heels or my feet parallel again. We'll finish the way we started. Turn out one foot and step the other in. So at this point, these short classes are getting more challenging for me because I would like to spend sufficient time doing foundation exercises and warming up for the walking, but it takes time, and then we have less time for the walking. So I'm trying to split the difference a little bit best I can. Shake out again, walk in place. I really believe very strongly and believe more and more. So I've been teaching longer, but probably also as I get older, that really allowing a good amount of time for those foundation exercises makes all the difference. That's where initially the things that seem like subtle details in the walking or in the forms start to become really obvious. Their importance grows, we can make those connections. And then we have a much better chance of integrating them into more complicated walking patterns like this. I think next week we'll probably take a look at a different walking pattern. One that emphasizes more the sort of final position being back weighted. And that allows us to explore the movements of the eyes more, maybe, but also the coordination of the arms. Thank you.